Is the sky falling down on the MBA degree? Is the MBA worth it? Is the MBA toast? So scream the headlines. I'm going to explore these questions, especially the less sensational one, as well as the implications of the more sensational ones to applicants in this podcast. Pull up a chair if you're trying to decide whether or not to get an MBA.
Welcome to Admissions Straight Talk, the podcast dedicated to graduate admissions and helping you approach the application process thoughtfully and successfully. Your host is Accepted's founder and world-renowned admissions guru, Linda Abraham. At Accepted, our mission is to get you to that unforgettable moment when you read your acceptance email and shout, "Yes, I'm in!" confident you'll be attending the perfect program to help you launch the career of your dreams.
Welcome to the 346th episode of Admissions Straight Talk and the first podcast of 2020. I've decided to do a solo show for this podcast and address something that I've been thinking a lot about. I'm so glad you decided to join me for this really important and fundamental show if you are considering or even committed to earning an MBA. Before we get to the big questions that I raised in the intro, I'd like to briefly deal with a more immediate question and invite you to our next webinar. The webinar will focus on should you apply round 3 of this year or round 1 of next year. There are pros and cons to each option. And again, I'm inviting you to join me on January 16th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern for our next webinar and our first webinar of the decade. At that time, I'm going to do a deep dive into who should apply round 3 or wait until next year. You can reserve your seat for this free webinar at accepted.com/round3, and I invite you to do so. Now, getting back to the main question. Headlines scream, is the MBA worth it? And frequently conclude that it's not, as did an editorial in the Wall Street Journal in the fall. We are now in an era of low unemployment, high tuition, and declining enrollment for U.S. business schools' flagship 2-year full-time MBA programs. That was what the Wall Street Journal was focusing on. Other articles conclude differently and trumpet that the MBA is almost always worth it because of the value of the MBA education and network. In my opinion, both sides are asking the wrong question. The right question is, when is the MBA worth it to you? Or if you're asking the question, when is it worth it to me? This is not a categorical kind of question. I can't answer for all of you. The headlines can't answer. The journalists can't answer it for all of you. And an op-ed can't answer it across the board for everyone, or even most. It's something that individuals must assess and analyze individually if they're going to make an intelligent decision about their investment in an MBA degree. So, if you're a prospective MBA applicant trying to decide if you should apply or attend if accepted, ignore those headlines for the most part. Approach the question with this maxim in mind. The MBA is worth it when the investment in time and money, let me start over again. The MBA is worth the investment in time and money when anticipated benefits, both financial and non-financial, exceed anticipated costs. Let me repeat that since I flubbed it the first time, and it really is fairly straightforward. The MBA is worth the investment in time and money when anticipated benefits, both financial and non-financial, exceed anticipated costs. Now that sounds really straightforward, especially if you're considering business school, but I'd like to unwrap it a little bit because it's a little bit more nuanced than it might sound on the surface. You can literally record your anticipated costs, and they're probably much easier to calculate than the anticipated benefits. What should go into your little spreadsheet or list, depending upon your preference? Out-of-pocket costs of the MBA. That would include tuition, fees, travel expenses. And the opportunity cost, the after-tax lost salary for the time spent in school, less the amount you anticipate earning during a summer internship if you're going to go for one. Don't include the living costs that you would have whether you're in business school or not. They're not part of the cost of the MBA. You need to budget for them, that's true, but they're not really part of the cost of the MBA. The next point, and this is really important, when you're considering costs, realize that the stated tuition, which is a big part of the cost, may be more than you actually pay, significantly or more. I'm going to repeat that. This is one of those really important lines, okay? Stated tuition may be more than you actually pay. Many schools Because of the headlines about declining enrollment and declining application more than declining enrollment, especially the elite private MBA programs offer significant amounts of scholarship money. In 2018, the Wall Street Journal reported that while stated tuition has increased steadily, schools have also increased both the total dollars offered and the percentage of students receiving scholarships and financial aid. In fact, the article states that 61% of this year's students are receiving scholarships based on merit, financial need, or a combination of the two. The same article reveals that the average fellowship award cut the cost of Harvard tuition in half, and total monies available for scholarships at the school have more than doubled since 2009. Dartmouth Tuck reported similar statistics in that article. Our clients who joined the MBA class of 2021, in other words, those who started this fall, received 40% more in scholarship dollars than those who joined the class of 2020, who will be graduating shortly. So far, we have already several clients, in other words, round one applicants, I'm recording this on December 20th, who have received full rides for next year, and we have already two who have received 2 full rides. In other words, schools are competing for them by offering them tuition-free MBAs. Now, our clients, and that's only so far, and I haven't heard from all our round one applicants. Now, obviously, round two don't know anything about yet. Our clients who joined the MBA class of 2020, I already said that. So, we're seeing both in the press and as a consultancy more generosity from the schools. Now, what's driving this generosity? Business schools are competing for top applicants in a shrinking applicant pool. Harvard Business School announced its second annual decline in application volume, down 6.7% in 2018-19 year over year, and 10.8% total since 2017. Dartmouth Tuck plunged 22.5%, and Yale dropped 15.6% year over year. Basically, I think the only school in the top 10 that didn't report a decline in application volume was Chicago Booth. With employment and job growth so strong, it's understandable that some potential applicants ask themselves, why should I leave my job and go to the trouble and expense of getting an MBA? And of course, there are the increasing immigration difficulties, or even just difficulties obtaining a visa to study in the US is more difficult than it was a few years ago. So why should somebody attempt to get an MBA at this time? Well, the reason is really very simple. The benefits of the MBA may still be worth it, even if tuition's gone up, even if others are not going to business school. For you, in your individual analysis, the MBA may still be worth it. Let's look at some information here, okay? So Forbes, I think it was November, October, the article came out, surveyed 17,500 business school alumni from the 2014 class for its 2019 rankings. And Forbes' conclusion is, and I'm quoting now, a degree at a leading business school is still incredibly valuable and pays for itself in roughly 4 years. Graduates from the class of 2014 at the top 25 U.S. programs increased their earnings from $73,000 on average before school to $193,000 last year. Earnings have increased 10% annually since graduation. Their survey shows that a top MBA program can cost, this is the sticker price, a jaw-dropping $350,000 in foregone income and out-of-pocket expenses. That is, if you pay the sticker price, full freight. But even then, it pays for itself in roughly 4 years. Any increased salary after that is gravy and return on investment. In addition to the financial reward, the MBA grads usually are seeking and enjoying more satisfying work. And GMAC data shows overwhelmingly satisfied alumni from MBA programs and business schools in general. So again, when you look at the investment or the 2 years out of work, yes, it's 2 years, but the rewards, the return on investment, it lasts for your entire professional career. Those financial and non-financial benefits propel people to invest in the MBA. The education, network, and credential that you acquire by earning an MBA enable the financial rewards and personal satisfaction that last a lifetime, assuming you make that calculation. With achievement of those two goals as your North Star, and your spreadsheet of costs keeping you firmly grounded on planet Earth, you can determine at what point the benefits outweigh the cost. At that point, the MBA is worth it for you. Notice I haven't said a word about rankings, application volume, immigration policy. Well, I have talked about immigration policy a little bit, rising tuition, or any of the factors that really create the headlines. However, those headlines are referencing frequently the declining application volume, and that does benefit you. That with fewer applicants vying for spots at top-tier programs, your chances for acceptance and financial aid improve. The reduced application volume and increased financial aid can make all the difference in your decision to attend business school or not. Another common question, is the MBA worth it if you can't attend Harvard, Stanford, or Wharton? Now, the star status of Harvard, Stanford, and Wharton, or HSW to its friends, blinds many would-be MBAs to the strengths of other programs. They assume it can't be worth their while to attend lesser schools. This is frequently false. Harvard, Stanford, and Wharton do boast outstanding programs, brand value, name recognition, networks, placement centers, and equally impressive salaries, as you're going to see or hear in a minute. However, the table below, and it's going to be in the show notes at exib.com/346, shows that these programs aren't the only programs whose graduates sport stratospheric salaries. The highest total compensation package reported so far this year was at Stanford, $187,760. That's definitely stratospheric. Wharton had $175,000. That was the estimate per poets and quants. Harvard, $172,090. But the third place in terms of total compensation, average total compensation, is Columbia University with $177,970, slightly higher actually than Wharton and Harvard. Other schools also had over $170,000, notably Dartmouth Tuck at $170 even, I think was the estimated amount. The overall average is $170,271. There are several in the high 160s, notably MIT Sloan at $169,434, Chicago Booth at $168,060, and Northwestern Kellogg is at $165,080. So again, the numbers, the salaries are very impressive. Do they go down slightly if you look at lower ranked programs? Or yes, they do, but they're still pretty impressive. And again, what counts is the benefit to you. Where are you at in your salary journey? If you're earning $150,000 or $200,000 now, it may not make sense. If you're earning 80, 90, 100, I don't know. Sounds pretty good to me. It could be a very, very good investment. Now let's put it this way. And again, the return is not purely financial, but I think you definitely would be wise to consider that. What about for those of you who are kind of sitting there thinking, well, I'm already making $150,000 or $200,000. I've gone to the Ivy League school. You may be in the group that, an elite group, I might add, that already is advancing quickly in your careers, making post-MBA salaries, listing Ivy League degrees on your resume, and enjoying the luxury of achieving your goals without the MBA. You are either in the group that doesn't need an MBA, or if you have goals where you feel the MBA could be beneficial, you may indeed be in the HSW or bust camp, and that's okay. That's your decision to make, and that is an assessment that you individually have to make. If, however, you are a more typical above average achiever who doesn't enjoy the elite's advantages and seeks the increased salary and career satisfaction that your North Star will provide, you will enjoy excellent options among the so-called M7, which includes Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, MIT Sloan, Kellogg, Chicago Booth, and Columbia, as well as the greater top 10, which has about 15 schools in it, or even the top 25 or 30 in whatever ranking you choose to use. But you have to determine that. You have to evaluate that. So the next question becomes, how do I decide where to apply? Well, first off, you need to assess your qualifications for each program, as well as each program's ability to help you follow that North Star that we've been talking about, the realization of your short-term and long-term post-MBA goals. For each school that you consider, evaluate the following. First, I don't know if you have to do this in this order, but you are going to want to evaluate these things. Number one, look at the employment reports. Does this school place a significant percentage of grads in the industry and job function that you find most attractive and at a salary that will make your MBA worthwhile? So for example, 19% of Vanderbilt's 2019 MBAs went into healthcare, making that school a smart target, or certainly a school of interest for applicants interested in this particular space. 37% of Yale School of Management's grads in the 2019 class went into consulting. Again, if you're interested in consulting, Yale SOM is a school that you should definitely look into because consulting firms are interested in graduates from this particular school. Then look at the curriculum and the educational approach of the school. Will you perform better in a highly structured program or a flexible one? Darden, for example, has a one-year core that all students take, lockstep. In contrast, Chicago Booth has only one required course and a flexible core. Do you want a program that is case-based? Case-based. Darden and Harvard Business School are almost exclusively case-based with a little experiential learning thrown in. Do you want a highly experiential program? Ross, Haas, MIT Sloan, they're all highly experiential. Or a mixture of case lecture and experiential. Kellogg, Yale School of Management, Columbia. Do you want to concentrate or perhaps earn a certificate in a specific area that is relevant to your goals? For example, do you seek a globally focused program? INSEAD, anyone? I mean, you can't get much more global than that. Or one that offers advanced courses in a specific area. So for example, Duke Fuqua excels in energy finance courses and energy and sustainability in general, as does Ross. And I think Georgetown also. And Georgetown McDonough is strong in the intersection of business and government and international development. UCLA Anderson, USC Marshall, and NYU Stern are all known for their entertainment and media offerings. And then there are extracurriculars. Important learning takes place in business schools outside the classroom. You're going to want to look for special programs, competitions, events, treks, and other opportunities that you would like to contribute to and learn from. And don't ignore personal factors. Do you have a significant other or children? Do you thrive in a big city? Or do you prefer smaller communities? Can you handle snow? I'm not sure I can. Or oppressive heat? If you visited different campuses, where did you feel at home? Where could you really envision yourself being for 2 years? After you study what each school can offer you, turn the question around. What do you bring to the table? Even in a slightly less competitive environment, admissions committees will be carefully looking at your qualifications. They will need assurance, and they're going to pretty much insist on that assurance, that you have the academic chops and credentials that show you can thrive, or at least make it, in their programs. Does your professional experience and perhaps volunteer work demonstrate that you'll be able to be both a leader and a team player, eager to contribute at their school and in their community? Can you show in your application how you have demonstrated that you share your target program's values and mission? Cultural fit and common values are important to business school gatekeepers who tend to be proud of their communities. Finally, what makes you distinctive personally? What's your story? Where do you come from? Where is the wow factor in your personal story? Because if somebody else has that wow factor and is fairly similar to you in terms of background and academic credentials, it's the wow factor that's going to get them in. Another good question that I think is highly relevant at this point in time and in this discussion. What if I'm not competitive at the schools I'd love to attend? Well, you have 3 options then. 1, you can improve your qualifications. If your GPA is the issue, take classes in your areas of weakness. You may also want to look at the webinar I did on mitigating a low GPA, accept.com/137. You can take classes and earn A's in them. Prepare again, retake, and raise your GMAT or GRE if that's the problem. Look for opportunities to expand your responsibilities and impact at work. Assume leadership roles off the job and obtain international exposure. That's number 1. Number 2, while you have your dream school and you don't have to forget about it, look at other programs with an open mind. Find programs that will help you realize your aspirations and where you are more likely to get accepted. Your dream programs may be a stretch, but give it a try. No need to reject yourself, but also apply to programs where you are competitive and programs that support your goals. If it doesn't support your goals, it doesn't make any sense to do it. And then there's the option of a combination of 1 and 2. That's number 3, right? Improve your qualifications, apply to your dream schools, and also apply to some programs where you're more likely to get accepted. So what is all this what's the bottom line on all this? The MBA is worth it to some and not to others. While the blaring headlines may be attention-getting, you should base your decision whether and where to apply for an MBA on a solid foundation of self-reflection, research, and analysis. Done properly, this process should be deeply purposeful, and even gratifying. It may not be fun, but it should be. Again, at the end, you should feel like, okay, I've gotten my information. I really know what I want to do, and it's either not for me or yes, it's going to be worth it. For today's MBA applicants, declining application volume means you are a buyer in a buyer's market. Even elite MBA programs are wooing applicants with bigger fistfuls of scholarship dollars, helping you achieve a richer ROI. The MBA may be in an era of retrenchment, but it is hardly toast. In fact, if you earn your MBA thoughtfully and purposefully, you could someday eat the lunch of those who focused on the sky is falling down headlines and unwisely chose not to apply to a program that could enrich the rest of their professional lives and is enriching yours. So at this point, listener, I want to thank you for joining me for this, our 346th episode. If you find the show worthwhile, please subscribe. Make sure you don't miss any future shows, be they with admissions directors, professors, current students, test prep pros, alumni doing great things, or me. Reminder, don't forget or miss out on Accepted's next MBA admissions webinar, round 3 versus next year. I think it's highly relevant if somebody concludes after this talk that yes, the MBA is worth it for them. The next question is when. You'll learn clear, actionable guidelines that you can use to determine if a round 3 application is for you or not. Save your spot at accepted.com/round3, ROUND, the number 3. Thanks again for coming. This is Admission Straight Talk produced by Accepted, and I'm your host, Linda Abraham. I'll talk to you again next week.